Hello, I'm Shingai George, an insights analyst at ForwardKeys. It is a pleasure to join you today and share our latest insights and outlook on passenger arrivals to Botswana. In this presentation, I'll first give you an overview of the current status of travel across the globe, and then we will zoom in on Botswana. Before I do this, please allow me to say a few words about ForwardKeys. We are a business-to-business travel analytics company specialized in air travel data. The core of our business is to help our customers better understand travel demand in real time and anticipate it. To do this, we rely on various datasets such as bookings made, tickets issued, or seat capacity data, to name a few. So what can we learn from this data? I would like to start with a snapshot of the current situation worldwide, as this is the starting point of our journey into the future. November has been yet another bleak month for global international arrivals, with widespread declines, 90% year-on-year across all continents. Europe and the Asia-Pacific region experienced the strongest declines, while the Americas and Africa and the Middle East performed slightly better than average, due to the reopening and reactivation of many destinations across Latin America, as well as Sub-Saharan Africa. The sad truth is that recovery of international travel is being made extremely difficult by the unequal evolution of the pandemic across the globe and travel restrictions which keep changing at short notice. For example, when Europe reopened over the summer, South America was still mostly closed, and now that South America is reopening, Europe is shutting down again. This has a very clear impact not only on arrival figures, as we have just seen, but also on ticketing levels for any future travel. What we have learned this year is that the world could shut down in a matter of weeks, but that reopening was a much more tedious process. The sad truth is that there can be no recovery of international travel when countries are not open for business. So rebuilding the travel sector requires a minimum of coordination at government level. When looking at the travel restrictions map at the end of July, it becomes clear that destinations across the Northern Hemisphere could not expect a recovery of international travel, as the world was still mostly shut. And now that the Southern Hemisphere is opening up for its summer season, countries in the north are shutting down again. As long as travel restrictions remain on such a large scale, the global recovery is near impossible. Let's now continue with Africa. The African continent offers a perfect example of the unequal evolution of the pandemic and its implications for the aviation industry. Looking at the evolution of Sub-Saharan Africa versus North Africa, we can establish that Sub-Saharan Africa was the main driver for this reactivation because it was reopening faster than North Africa. The current acceleration in Sub-Saharan Africa is pushing up the overall results, while North Africa is now showing a steady, albeit timid, reactivation. It must be noted that some North African countries opened temporarily over the European summer, whilst most African countries were still closed. However, as we can see, the trend has reversed. Looking at the specific performance of the Sub-Saharan African region and some of its key destinations, we will see that Ethiopia led the recovery way above the regional average, while other destinations like South Africa have consistently underperformed. Ethiopia and Addis Ababa in particular have consolidated their position in recent years as an important international hub, and before the start of the COVID crisis, connectivity and passenger numbers were on the increase. The sharp decline in new tickets for future travel to Ethiopia seen in the last few weeks is in part explained by the abrupt closure of some key European markets as well as civil unrest in Ethiopia. We must bear in mind that as more countries begin to open or loosen travel restrictions, there will be increased competition for travelers among destinations. When we look at the key source markets for Sub-Saharan Africa, France enjoyed robust performance, bolstered by traffic to Reunion Island, which is a French overseas territory. However, this trend has waned in recent weeks as COVID-19 cases began to surge in France, and the country subsequently went back into lockdown. When we look at the USA and the United Kingdom, South Africa has been the main beneficiary of increased interest from these source markets. Let's place our attention on Botswana. When we look at the air tickets since the announcement of the phase border reopening, there's been a very mild upsurge in tickets. Despite this, when we look at flight searches, we can see that there's still a desire to travel to Botswana. Looking into the future, if we take a closer look at the tickets issued, we can anticipate strong interest to travel over the Christmas holidays and the upcoming safari season. When we look at long-haul overseas markets for Botswana, the United Kingdom has shown promising signs of reactivation. If we compare 2019 versus 2020 Christmas holiday, we can see that South Africa and United Kingdom maintain a presence in both years. Similarly, if we compare Q1 2020 versus Q1 2021, South Africa and the United Kingdom are still the strongest performers. A key question that will be of interest to tour organizers and the hospitality industry is how long can we expect visitors to stay in Botswana? On average, we expect most visitors to stay in Botswana between 9 to 13 nights. This trend is mostly supported by leisure travelers. COVID-19 has presented numerous and unforeseen challenges for the travel industry, but with challenges come opportunities. Botswana is highly dependent on major transfer hubs to channel overseas visitors into the country, namely Johannesburg, Addis Ababa, and Doha. The majority of passengers must make 2 or more stops before finally landing in Botswana. If there's an imposition of travel restrictions at any of these hubs, this will inevitably cut off visitors from the country. If we observe 3 main hubs for arrivals into Botswana, what we observe from May to August is that consumers were more tempted by point-to-point travel, which constitutes a real challenge for secondary destinations like Botswana. However, in recent weeks, the limited number of point-to-point flights has forced travelers to consider connecting flights. The rebuilding of air connectivity will be critical. Seen from the airline's perspective, it will be all about progressive adjustments to meet demand. In the past 3 months, airlines have consistently scaled down capacity. You can see it here with scheduled capacities for Q1 as they were in September, October, and November. What can we learn from this? The further we look, the less reliable it is. For the coming months, scheduled air capacity will continue to be very volatile. I will briefly deviate from Botswana and take an example from North America. Due to the travel restrictions imposed by most countries on travelers from the USA, Mexico has largely kept its borders open and thus capitalized on this limitation. I added this in conclusion to provide you with a glimmer of optimism. The willingness to travel is still strong. If travelers from the USA are willing to travel regionally, there is nothing that can inhibit them from traveling further afield if the conditions permit. So what are the key takeaways? The time taken between booking and traveling is getting shorter. This points to an increasing pattern of travelers who are increasingly making decisions at the last minute. You need data that helps you make smart and informed decisions. You need access to fresh and reliable data as things can change very quickly. You only have a short window of time for your destination to gain an advantage over its competitors. Be organized in such a way that you can fully maximize the value of the data you have. Long-term strategic planning is critical. For example, where do you want to be? What kind of visitors do you want to attract? And as part of this long-term planning, connectivity is key. How do you make sure that people have access to your destination? Finally, agility and flexibility should be vital components of any destination marketing strategy. Should you have any questions about the data presented today, please don't hesitate to contact me at ForwardKeys or via LinkedIn. Thank you for your time today, and we speak soon at the Q&A.